There is no question of India getting into recession or stagflation. Adirji, you please be assured there is no question of us getting into either a stagflation or, like the US, they may say technical recession, whatever.
On July 26th, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, warned that the world might soon be teetering on the edge of a global recession as the economies of the United States, China and Europe are slowing more sharply than anticipated. The US economy has shrunk for the second quarter in a row, sparking fears that the US may have already slipped into recession. What about the Indian economy? The Indian Finance Minister says there is no question of India slipping into a recession or stagflation. Is that true? Let's unbreak this news. When America sneezes, the world catches cold is a famous phrase which is used to show how anything significant that happens in the US affects the rest of the world. The US economy has faced a second quarter of negative growth. US President Joe Biden has said that the US economy is slowing down but is not in recession. Many are asking the US administration if it is trying to redefine the term recession.
Things are going so great though, then why is it the White House officials are trying to redefine recession?
No, we're not redefining recession.
If we all understand a recession to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth in a row, and then you have White House officials come up here to say, no, that's not what a recession is. It's something else. How is that not redefining recession?
Because that's not the definition. That is not the definition.
Brian Deese said in 2008, of course, economists have a technical definition, which is of a recession, which is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
I can tell you this.
Yesterday he said 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of a recession.
It is
What
not.
changed?
It is not.
And Mr. President, we're getting GDP numbers on Thursday. How worried should Americans be that we could be in a recession?
We're not going to be in a recession, in my view. The employment rate is still one of the lowest we've had in history. It's in the 3.6 area. We still find ourselves with people investing. My hope is we go from this rapid growth to steady growth. And we'll see some coming down. But I don't think we're going to, God willing, I don't think we're going to see a recession.
After the IMF warned that global recession is looming large, the question is India in recession or stagflation? Stagflation is persistent inflation combined with high unemployment and stagnant demand in a country's economy. The Indian Finance Minister says there is absolutely no question of recession or stagflation in India. Quoting a Bloomberg survey, Nirmala Sitharaman claimed there was a zero probability of India slipping into recession. Speaking about how India is faring much better than other countries, the finance minister said that 4,000 banks in China are reportedly on the verge of going bankrupt. But in India, the gross non-performing assets, the NPAs of scheduled commercial banks, have hit a 6-year low of 5.9% in the financial year 2022. She has said that the debt to GDP ratio of many countries is in triple digits, including countries like Japan, Greece, Italy, Bhutan, Singapore, the US, Portugal, Spain, France, Sri Lanka and Canada. India, she says, has been able to control its debt and it is at 56.29% of the GDP at the end of financial year 21-22 compared to 59.9% pegged in the revised estimates for that year.
So the GDP of the US fell 0.9% in the second quarter, following a 1.6 decline in the first quarter, marking a start of what they call themselves an unofficial recession. There were some members who were saying, even Adirji mentioned, are we going into a stagflation? And will the finance minister please reply? I will first of all start with the last speaker, but the leader of the opposition here. There is no question of India getting into recession or stagflation.
The finance minister also quoted the IMF data saying India is in a far better position than its peers with a general debt to GDP ratio of 86.9%, which includes both center and states. The report that everyone is talking about in India is this survey by Bloomberg, which says that there is zero probability of India slipping into a recession. The survey notes that Sri Lanka, which is in the midst of its worst economic crisis, has an 85% probability of sliding into recession. Japan is pegged at 25%. China, 20%. Australia, 20%. Pakistan, 20%. But India, 0%. In its monthly bulletin released on July 16th, the Reserve Bank of India too has said that India's economy has been showing resilience and dynamism in spite of the geopolitical situation and high-risk aversion in financial markets. But the former RBI governor doesn't think so. He has said that certainly India has higher growth than many economies in the world, but our growth has been insufficient to create the employment we need.
I think the more important issue is to get inflation under control. Once inflation is under control, then I think the rupee will find the appropriate level given the state of our exports, given the state of our imports, and it will be what is necessary to bridge the gap. The key, again and again, I keep emphasizing, is to get inflation under control. Now, on inflation, the level of inflation certainly is much higher than we would desire, and that is for sure. At 7%, it's above the RBI's target range, and I think it's hard to make out whether the worst is over, whether there's more inflation to come.
What must worry India is the fact that India's retail inflation based on consumer price index stood at 7.01% in June. And this is the third straight month when the inflation numbers have stayed above 7% and the sixth month in a row when the figures have gone above the RBI tolerance band of 2 to 6%. India's food inflation has been rising at its fastest pace in 2 years. Let's look at how our states are performing. Many Indian states are showing signs of severe economic distress. According to official data, Rajasthan, Punjab and Tamil Nadu have the highest revenue deficit at 3.64%, 2.64% and 2% of the gross state domestic product GSDP respectively. Punjab, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan and West Bengal are India's worst performing states. The total outstanding liabilities of the four states, namely Punjab, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Kerala, were higher than the national average of 32.1%. That apart, the Indian rupee has come under intense pressure and had already fallen over the 80 mark to the dollar level twice in July. Many say India should be worried. Indian economist and journalist Swaminathan Iyer has said that there is not the slightest chance that the world has a hard landing and India does not. We are only 7% of the global economy. The idea that we will stand out is a fantasy to me. BJP leader Subramaniam Swamy has in fact said, "No question of the Indian economy getting into recession," says Finance Minister. She is right, because Indian economy has already got into recession last year. So question of getting into recession does not arise. So are we in a recession? The answer is yes and no. It is too early to be sure of this. While India's economy may be better placed than some other economies across the world, the fact is India too is going through a deeply challenging phase. We can't afford to be in denial. We can't be complacent.